We will call this Committee of the Whole together to order. Will you all rise to receive the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Public comment. Anyone who wishes to speak this morning? Good morning.
Cindy Twitchell, that's spelled Twicchell from Prairieville Township. And just for the record, I would rather think of you guys as friends rather than enemies. But just to let you know, I expect integrity and truth for my friends, and I hope that my friends expect the same for me. And to let you also know that what I have to say is going to take about 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Noah Webster Dictionary 1828 defines opinion as the judgment which the mind forms of any proposition, statement, theory, or event. The truth or falsehood of which is supported by a degree of evidence that renders it probable, but does not produce absolute knowledge or certainty. Opinion is when the assent of the understanding is so far gained by the evidence of probability that it rather inclines to one persuasion than to another, yet not without a mixture of uncertainty or doubting. An opinion is just that, what someone thinks is true based on information they have received. And legal opinions change based on the person in the position at that time. The Supreme Court is not sovereign. The Supreme Court does not have absolute power. The Supreme Court does not always get it right. For example, Buck versus Bell, 1927. On May 2nd, 1927, the U.S. Supreme Court, by a vote of 8-1, affirmed the constitutionality of Virginia's law allowing state-enforced sterilization. After being raised by foster parents and allegedly raped by their nephew, the appellant, Carrie Buck was deemed feeble-minded and promiscuous. In 1924, Buck was committed to the Virginia State Colony for Epileptics and Feeble-Minded near Lynchburg, and there ordered sterilized. The Virginia law allowing the procedure had been passed in 1924 and responded to 50 years of scholarly debate over whether certain social problems, including shiftlessness, poverty, and prostitution, were inherited and ultimately could be eliminated through selective sterilization. In an infamous opinion, Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. noted that Carrie Buck, her mother, and her daughter were all suspected of being feeble-minded, declaring, 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. The opinion was never overturned and led to a marked increase in sterilizations across the United States. At the Nuremberg trials, Nazi defendants cited Buck versus Bell in their own defense. Virginia repealed the law in 1974, and in 2002 they even apologized to their victims. But the Supreme Court decision, I have not even yet today been able to find whether or not it's been overturned. So if it hasn't been overturned, this must mean that states forcing sterilization on individuals they deem best, or they deem unfit, must still be constitutional.
Thank you. Anyone else this morning? If there's no one else, we'll move along. The next item, Dave Palin, contract for imaging of court files. Good morning.
Morning. I haven't met all of you, I don't think yet. I'm the new Deputy Court Administrator at Jan Otter's place. So, morning.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. So, you probably want to hear what my request is. All right, I've never done this before. So-
Hang on just a second. I gotta follow my script here. I don't get to be here very often, but I do have a script. So at this time, the chair would like to entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to contract with Graphic Sciences to digitally image court files in circuit, district, and front of the court and spend up to $60,589 for the project with funds to be paid from supplemental CESF grant and data processing.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Motion by Gibson, seconded by Smelker.
We're gonna vote.
Phelan, the floor is
You're
yours.
gonna vote on
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we first have discussion.
it? Discussion.
Yeah, it's just discussion. Mr. Palin, if you would like to give us your presentation? Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
It's been a while since I've been up here.
So back in January, the county entered into a contract with Michigan State Police to receive that grant funding, pass-through funding in the amount of,
Is your mic on?
Maybe it works, you just gotta pull, yeah, have it right in front of you.
how about this?
Like rock
There you
star.
go.
Yeah.
So back in January, the county entered into a contract with Michigan State Police to receive the pass-through funding, coronavirus relief funding in the amount of $30,360. And with that funding, the intent was to use it to image cases because we have a real lack of storage in both in circuit, friend of the court, as well as district court. We are out of room for our files. So the intent is to image files between 2018 and 2020 that are closed files. We received quotes from several different vendors, and the quote that came in the best for us was Graphic Sciences, which is convenient because they have experienced their contract with the state of Michigan already to provide this service. The total amount that the quote came in at for all three courts that I just mentioned is $60,000. Let me make sure I get this right. $588.66. So obviously the grant would cover about half of that. The request is that the remainder come out of the data processing fund. So the request today is to allow us to enter into a contract with Graphic Sciences to provide this service.
Okay. Commissioners, anyone with any questions? John?
Question. I'm just glad to see this happening. I think it's long.
So far away over there, Commissioner Campbell, do you have any questions?
I do not. I think this is something we need, and it's a good thing for our county.
Commissioner Gibson?
I have no questions.
Question?
Thank you. I did have a question. Is there a reason that we're not doing any files from probate, or is it just because of the amount of money and that's what we had enough for?
I think the amount of money is part of it, but the other side of that is in probate, I actually have some room for files still, so I wanted to address the immediate need. And probate's need is not immediate.
Okay, all right. So, there being no further discussion, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to enter into a contract with Graphic Sciences to image court files for the total cost of $60,588.66. Funds are to be provided by the CESF grant award in the amount of $30,360 and $30,228.66 from the data processing fund. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? The item is approved. Right, it was recommend the Board of Commissioners approval. That's what the motion was.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate it, and it's nice to meet you. Welcome to Berry County.
Nice to meet you as well.
So if you think it looks like I'm struggling up here, I scratched my cornea. So I'm kind of blinking a lot, and we'll get through this, but they say it's the fasting healing thing, but it's very annoying. So next up, Tammy Price. OCC fiscal year 2023 grant application.
Morning.
Good morning. So, commissioners, at this time, the chair would like to entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the fiscal year 2023 Office of Community Corrections grant application for submission.
Support.
Motion by Smelker, seconded by Getty. Tammy.
Thank you. Well, so there's some changes to this grant this year. They have discontinued funding for Gatekeeper, and Gatekeeper was used to provide personnel and fringes for staff that run the program through OCC. And that could ultimately cost the county some money to supplement. My best guess is that it's going to be anywhere, this is a little different, it could be $0, it could be up to just under $17,000. It just really depends on what they award us in the grant application. So I'm fighting for $0, but I'm just giving you a heads up that it may require some county funding this year, and it has not in the past. Other changes to the grant application include the addition of another relapse prevention group. In Berry County, the greatest criminogenic needs in this county and many other counties, probably all other counties, is substance abuse. And so a relapse prevention group seems appropriate for that. That would give us 2 relapse prevention groups, and both of those groups would be an hour and a half as opposed to an hour that they are in the current fiscal year. We're also requesting funding for a seeking safety group for females. The seeking safety group would cover females who have an SUD or substance use diagnosis, as well as females who have a PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. We've also asked for an increase in funding for the contractual rate by 10%. Pine Rest has given their employees a 12% increase in wages. And so we're trying to maintain those contracts. As you well know, it's very difficult to find good employees and people that will stay. And so I've asked for that 10% increase as well. Additionally, there was a 2% increase in personnel for the county staff, and that's per the association agreement, which also increases fringes. The administrative award is 30%. So when you get a grant award through OCC, they will allow 30% of that to go for staff. And so that's kind of the piece where I'm not sure if we're going to need county money or not. It just depends on the grant award.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? You have a comment?
Yeah. If there is county money needed, I believe that should come out of the further funds.
I have that question down here too. What line item would we take those out of?
I believe.
And this is the grant for next year, correct?
Yes, this grant would begin October.
Oh, that's the state's
It is the state fiscal year.
fiscal year, okay. And we have no idea, but you're thinking just under 17,000?
That's my best estimate of a worst case scenario, is that it would be just under $17,000. But again, it depends on the award, and we don't have any control over what the state awards us.
I know we just got the sheet with the balance on our different line items, but. Michael?
Heard that Fallon's Fund does have a fund balance that has revenues annually.
And can we utilize that for fringes and?
And yes.
Okay, that was my question, because I wasn't exactly sure on that type of an expenditure. Does anyone else have any questions? Any discussion?
No.
All right. There being no further discussion, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the fiscal year 2023 Office of Community Corrections grant application for submission. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion is approved. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Next, our next presenter, Michael Brown. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2023 budget calendar.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Motioned by Commissioner Gibson, seconded by Commissioner Campbell. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, it's hard to believe we're here already again.
Yes.
We are just finishing up, I say just finishing up, we're in the midst of the audit. The field work has been completed for 2021. Of course, we're in the kind of the throes of the 2022 budget, and now we're looking at putting together 2023's budget already. So the standard budget calendar remains effectively unchanged, if you will. We begin the process today, if you may, with a recommendation to the Committee of the Whole. Assuming you approve that budget calendar at your meeting on May 10th, we will get budget documents out. June is the month where departments will work on their budget requests and submit them. I'll work on revenues in July. That's when it gets busy in my office. We'll take a look at all those budget requests, start to put them into a comprehensive document. In August, the recommendation goes out to everybody, including the county board. It's at that point that you will start to take a look at it, schedule appeals if necessary, and then into September, where you would make a recommendation as a board so that we can advertise the budget, hold a public hearing at the end of October, and adopt the budget. So again, the standard process at this point. So I'd answer any questions that the board might have.
Commissioners, anybody have any discussion?
Looks the same every year.
It does. At least the calendar does.
Yes.
Bruce, you're so far away over there. So sorry.
I feel it so at home behind this pole. It's like leaving home.
Oh, okay. Do you have
I think
any?
the other two told you they were leaving.
Well, that's my chair, but I had to sit over here for the,
You do get a complex when the two next to you are gone.
so the question, if there isn't any other discussion, the question before the board is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2023 budget calendar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion is approved. Next item. At this time, I would the chair would entertain a motion to to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached amended MERS Health Care Savings Program Participation Agreement and Contribution Addendum for the Berry County Central Dispatch employees effective 1/1/22.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Smelker, seconded by Getty.
Yes, thank you. This is a follow-on to our OPEB or other post-employment benefits work that we've been doing for a while now, as we have transferred or transitioned more precisely from a defined benefit, if you may, style retiree health care program that then created an other post-employment benefits liability to a more of a 401k or a defined contribution style retiree health care program. And the way we have done that is using the MERS, which is the Municipal Employees Retirement System. They're the same provider that provides our retirement system. Their health care savings program. And effectively what we did, if you'll recall, is calculated the liability of each employee and then have established health care savings program accounts, opened those up and transferred those funds into that account, closed off the liability, and then going forward contribute a dollar amount per month that they work into those accounts. In this case, this is an amendment to the agreement that includes now Central Dispatch Authority employees. And we will be back one more time as we finish out with Charlton Park staff. But this is simply to now add the Central Dispatch employees to the process. There is one amendment to this, if I'm correct, Stephanie, and Stephanie Lehman's here if you have any questions, our 911 director. It's March 1, right?
It is.
So we, through the process, so the motion will be effective March 1, 2022, and the documents that are attached will update to correct the 1/1/22 to March 1 of 22, so it aligns with the action that the Central Dispatch Board took. So our apologies on that. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions if there are.
John, do you mind amending your motion to include that 3/1/22 date?
So amended.
Catherine?
Sure.
Thank you. Discussion, any questions for Michael? John, you're on that Central Dispatch Board still, aren't you?
Yeah, and I was also on the negotiating committee that, all the bargaining committees in the county.
Okay.
I'll just make a quick comment that this particular action won't, but in total, when we get then Charlton Park done, and we have effectively finished it out, it will remove, if you may, about $1.4, $1.5 million worth of accrued liability. It's not unfunded. We have, if you'll recall, it was funded, fully funded, but it'll remove about $1.5 million worth of accrued liability off of our books.
Great.
And I think at the end of the day, it's been a win for both the county and the employees. We didn't eliminate the program and close it and do nothing, which was an option. We did away with the program that creates a liability and ultimately can create unfunded accrued liabilities, and replaced it with a program that benefits the employees, but then also has the effects of a program that that long-term the employer can maintain and fund. So it was our goal. So I appreciate everybody's work in getting this one done. It's no small feat. I like to think that we did it with the work of the unions and department heads, and that in a way that didn't create a lot of consternation. There were some great questions and whatnot, but not a lot of consternation. And that's not necessarily the case in the industry. So I appreciate everybody's work in getting this one done.
I remember when we had the results of the 2020 audit, the glowing remarks from the accountant on the good work that Berry County has done, and that in this case with these OPEB costs, that we really got a handle on this and we're actually ahead of the game. And a lot of municipalities struggle with these types of unfunded liabilities. So it's great that we're being so proactive. So that being, if there's no further discussion before the committee, the motion is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached amended MERS Health Care Savings Program Participation Agreement and Contribution Addendum for the Berry County Central Dispatch employees effective 3/1/22. 3/1/2022. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, is approved, I'm sorry. And the next item, I will entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners classifying the animal shelter kennel worker positions as, have I got the right one? Nope. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you're
To
on the
recommend
right
to
one.
the Board of Commissioners classifying the animal shelter kennel worker positions as BCCEA salary schedule classification grade 1.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Smelker. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Campbell. Motioned by Gibson, seconded by Campbell. Good morning again. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning.
So I'll lead this one off. You all know Ken Kirsch, our animal shelter director, and I'll kind of lead this one off again. Yeah, this is to recommend classifying our existing kennel workers who are currently part-time. They're 19 hours per week or less, so they are not part of a bargaining group. If they were to be 20 hours or more, they would end up in a bargaining group, and that bargaining group would be the Employees Association. So that's why if you may, have marked it to the Berry County Courthouse Employees Association salary schedule. Right now, the kennel workers, and we have 4 positions, if I recall, 4 part-time positions. Although I think 2 of them are vacant.
They are.
And that will be a topic we're going to talk about in the next one. But the kennel positions are currently paid $9.87 an hour. That's what the salary's set at. Because they're not part of a group, I don't recall how the salary that wage got set, but that hourly wage, but that's what it is, and it really doesn't get connected to anything. So as we look to the salary schedule, this classification grade 1, there's a classification process. I went through the job description. Ken created one. I reviewed it, went through our classification process, and it does fit in as a classification grade 1. That is the first grade of that pay schedule, and it has a range from $12.70 an hour up to $15.14 an hour. I believe that both the job description as well as the pay scale is attached. You'll see that we have steps over a 4-year process to top out. So we would be asking that these positions, or this, I guess, classification be established at a pay grade 1 of the Employees Association schedule. As you can imagine, we're having, I say we loosely, we nothing Ken, is having significant difficulty trying to attract anybody to those positions at that amount, and even at the 1270 to 1514 could still be difficult. So I'll stop there and try to answer any questions.
There's money in that general fund to handle this.
There is. We're going to have to. That's one of the challenges that I'm dealing with, quite honestly, right now. I'm getting a little off and a little on the inside politics, if you may, of administration. But we're just struggling to hire and even retain staff. we're all trying to figure that out. What is the magic formula? Some of it's money, some of it's, in this case, the position isn't highly desirable. Certain people it is, but not everybody. Right now, Ken is utilizing volunteers to kind of fill in, which, that's wonderful. They're very passionate, but they're volunteers. They don't want to necessarily be committed to have to be there. They already do, but so not necessarily answering your question directly. But yes, there is, and one of the areas that we'll kind of lean on this year is our funds or expenditures that are going unspent because of vacant positions, and trying to make sure that those staff that we have aren't burnt out to a point that that they leave or look other places. So, yeah.
Anybody else? Any discussion from anybody else?
There's, I know there's other departments that also are not under this classification. Parks, for example, are Charlton Park employees. And I'm not clear on when the compensation study was done, which departments were included in that and which weren't. But I'd like to see a more county-wide look at what we're paying employees. For instance, we've posted a position, or Dan Patton posted a position for a Parks seasonal employee for $10 an hour, and we didn't get any applications last year. We're in this, Parks is in the same boat. Volunteers are great, but the commitment isn't there, and you often have to have somebody to oversee them. So it's that's not the magic bullet. Certainly, it's a tool in the toolbox, but volunteers are not replacements for employees.
Sure. So we can certainly assist with trying to help classify a position. When we did the compensation and classification study, the Employees Association, which is our largest bargaining group, was involved. Commission on Aging, Charlton Park. Trying to think if there were others right off, but in this case, Charlton Park was however, once the classifications and the comparisons and the salaries are kind of set, I think one of the issues that comes out is the funding. So in this case, the general fund is what's funding these positions. Charlton Park and Commission on Aging were funded through their millages. So then they had a situation where they had to go through a process to say what can they afford based on the revenues that are available. And so that's where if you may, a little bit of a disconnect. So we can certainly help look at are those classifications where they should be, and then the next step is how do you fund it. And we went through a bit of that. Again, I'm giving a little bit of the history of, if you may, of the process, that when we looked at that classification and compensation study, we looked internally at our positions to make sure that comparable positions across departments were being compensated appropriately or comparably, if you may. And then we looked at our external environment to see how we were compared and compensating employees to the labor market. Historically, we had looked at comparables that were of similar population and similar taxable value. And the reason we use that is particularly with the taxable value, that's presumes our revenue, what we can afford. The problem with that look is that we don't have many counties in our labor market that meet that comparison. We were looking to counties that were northern, and not necessarily where our employees were either leaving to go work or where we were trying to draw from. So we looked at counties that were more geographic to us. The first thing that then comes to mind, though, and that we'd always argued, is I can't compete with Kent County. I just don't have the resources. So what we ultimately did is looked at that and recognized that it might be, and most likely will be, out of reach. But what does it look like? And then we struck a process where we said, we're going to be at 90% of our market comparables. I can't compete dollar for dollar, but if we can be within 10%, and that's what we sort of struck. Now the challenge is to make sure we stay there and don't what you call creep one way or the other. My concern right now is that the labor market may be moving up faster than what ours are and keeping pace with that. That being said, we're also looking at a market that, is it just transitory? Is it short term? You don't want to move too much if it's going to find its way back, revert back to the mean, if you may. We just don't know that. So we're in a bit uncharted territory. A lot of things going on that we're trying to watch. So again, excuse my vernacular, a long way around the barn there to answer your question.
Okay.
We can certainly help work with Dan. The challenge becomes the funding part of it. And I think you recognize that.
Certainly with with Charlton Park millage being maybe a limiting factor, but with the boards combined and with a more holistic approach to Berry County parks and funding from the general fund, I would think that would provide us more flexibility in providing a good park experience and, frankly, a safe park experience, for residents and visitors to Berry County, in the same light. I just don't want to take such a narrow approach to compensation, so that, there might,
Sorry.
Wow. It was like a drone.
It's a bug's life.
Yeah. So that's just my concern, is that I'd like to look at, and those are the two things now that we know about, animal shelter employees and park employee concerns. So I'd really like to make sure that we're, providing for our employees, and that our departments can staff them.
Okay.
Are there any other questions regarding the animal shelter positions pay increase? Without any further discussion, then, the motion before the board is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners classifying the animal shelter kennel worker positions as BCCEA salary schedule classification grade 1. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is approved. Well, and the last thing on our agenda today, I would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to increase the hours for one animal shelter kennel worker from part-time 19 hours per week to full-time. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Smelker. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Campbell. Discussion? Michael?
Super,
Ken?
thank you. Yeah, so I'll start this one off, and then Ken can add some input if you have questions. But this is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to increase the hours for an animal shelter kennel worker from part-time to full-time. So as we look at trying to fill those part-time positions, it's just becoming difficult. People, we're not finding candidates at all, if you may, and they're not sticking around We have some folks that are working, or at least multiple part-time jobs, and we're finding that we're losing those individuals to when they do find a full-time position. So what this would do is effectively take 2 of the part-time positions and make 1 full-time. So you'd go from 4 part-time down to 2 part-time and one full-time. We have been able to, in the past, get away with, limp along with, if you may, part-timers. As you'll recall, Ken came and asked for an additional part-timer. Because of the need, it's a demand that's 7 days a week to provide the care for the animals, make sure the kennels and the shelter is clean and sanitized, and we just aren't filling the position. So we've got Ken and others that are having to set aside their responsibilities to make sure this gets done, which isn't very efficient at all and effective. So again, yeah, that's our request is to make a part-time. So if you have questions about the details of I can talk about the classification, and I can talk about the human resources and budgetary side of it. If you have questions about the job, the responsibilities,
Anybody?
Ken can
Discussion?
certainly handle that.
Beg your pardon?
Since I pretty much know the responsibilities. I wouldn't do it.
Catherine? Commissioner Getty, sorry.
Catherine is fine. What is the estimate of what the benefits would cost, the financial implication?
Yeah, we've got, so it's going to be, it really depends on the health insurance. So it could be as much as another 30%.
Is that kind of worst-case scenario, 30%?
We can put a better number together for the board meeting. I apologize. I meant to have pulled that, but the big one is health insurance. Just depends on which plan an individual takes. I meant to grab that. So.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to express the same concern. It's just that I know there's struggles, at least in what the board that I serve on with parks, that we're in the same position where, you know, Ken and Dan as directors are chief bottle washer and administering grants and, you know, administrative level items, and it's very difficult for our departments to function that way. So I'm not opposed. I'm just, you know, drawing the comparison to what I know is happening at parks, and so that I just wanted to have that.
Are you done, Catherine?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Smucker?
I guess my thoughts on that, Catherine, is we're talking about 2 different things. We're talking about them out of the general fund or a millage-based. Millage-based, it's up to that board to run that. If it's out of the general fund, then let's get rid of the board and we'll run it through the general fund.
It's a combination with the Parks Board being combined. It's the Charlton Park millage and general fund dollars for Berry County Parks as a whole. So it's a combined budget, correct, Michael? I mean, if you know, in effect, Berry County Parks is funded through general fund dollars. Charlton Park also receives millage dollars, but there is that is a combined effort with general fund and millage dollars.
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, the Charlotte Park has a millage. The Parks and Recs does not have a millage. only source of funding at this point would be the bit of general fund. I don't know how much that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charlton Park's millage goes to Charlton Park, right? That board
Correct.
owns it?
Correct.
Is there any other questions about the animal shelter?
Do you have somebody for that position yet, the 40 hours?
There's someone that I'm interested in, who has some interest, looking towards the future.
That was my question. I was wondering, you have currently 2 part-time workers?
Yeah, so I have one part-time worker. I was able to fill one of those I was able to fill one of those positions.
Okay.
And she's leaving the last day of July to go to college.
Oh, okay.
So that position's empty. And then the other person came back from Florida on vacation. She's given me, I needed 5 days a week. She's willing to do 2, and if she's not babysitting another one, she'll do a third. So that, and then I'm just filling it in as I can.
Okay.
With each of those positions, each of the 4, with past employees. Some work 2 hours a week, and some will work like the 19, and I'm trying to fill it in from there.
Okay. Yeah, I don't envy you. There's probably, and I just came back from Florida. I was telling Commissioner Getty that there was a sign down there that said, hiring anyone who will show up. So it is just incredible the amount of job openings that are available right now. I mean, you see signs everywhere. So who's hiring? Even in the reminder, there's a ton of advertisements for jobs. Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you. With this change from part-time to full-time, Ken, that won't change any demand as far as what we're asking for part-time workers, the numbers we need, or anything like that. That need is still going to stay there.
Yeah, the same. I'm still covering the same amount of hours. I'm just combining an AM part-time and an afternoon part-time with a full-time person.
So we are reducing some of the part-time positions to go into that position, basically.
Right.
From
4 to 2
in the budget.
but adding 1 full-time.
Okay. Well, I think it's long overdue. You do a great job down there. Everybody knows that. And hopefully it'll be a catapult to Catherine's concerns over there too, which are the same. It's all in the same boat, and we got to start somewhere. It's a good place to start.
Any other discussion? With no other discussion, there being no further discussion, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to increase the hours for 1 animal shelter kennel worker from part-time, 19 hours per week, to full-time. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion is approved. Thank you. Good luck. Hopefully this will help. With that being said, public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes. Sorry, I'm really focusing hard on this. Just my eyes are not cooperating. At least
Cindy
one.
Twitchell from Prairieville. Just to let you know, I am a Constitution coach through Patriot Academy, and I am inviting each and every one of you, if you are interested in studying and learning the Constitution, to please contact me. I am willing to do Zoom classes or in person. I prefer in person because we're able to discuss and really chew and digest the Constitution together. Our Constitution is the foundation of our country, and it has been shredded, not just over the last 2 years, but actually it started to get shredded right after it was ratified. It's been under attack. So until we truly understand what our Constitution and forefathers put together for us, such a beautiful contract, that unless we truly understand it, we can't defend it. And as public elected officials, I do believe that it's your responsibility to truly understand the Constitution. It's not that difficult. I just started learning myself 2 years ago, to believe it or not. But I have found it to be such a wonderful document that I will die to defend. I love my country. I love my county, even though I'm new to the county. Wherever I live, that's home. And Vivian, thank you for our emails back and forth trying to connect. I do want to sit down and talk with you. I know I can be a very strong personality. I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not ever going to apologize for the passion and love I have for my country. I will, like I said, die, go to jail, whatever, for my country. But I open the invitation up to you, please, and to the community here. Please contact me. It's a great program through Patriot Academy with Dave Barton, through Wall Builders, and Rick Green from Texas.
Did you want to give us a contact and for any
I can give
email?
you my email.
Okay.
It's Cynthia, Cynthia, Twitchell, TWICHELL, @gmail.com.
Thank you.
And I will look forward to the emails.
Thank you. Is there anyone else this morning? You're next. No,
Sorry about that, I was just faster on my feet.
You were closer to the microphone, to be fair.
Yeah, I speak in my outdoor voice, so I really don't need the microphone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Rick Moore, not related to any other Moores, and I live in Irving Township in Berry County. We've got a voting day coming up here, and that hasn't been mentioned, and I wanted to remind people that it seems that around the world democracy is under attack, and it's important that we have a public education system that is functional and effectual so we can educate the populace as to what's going on in the country. Because without a public school system, then we're divided into rich folks in private schools and poor people that have to learn out on the street. And out on the street is not the place to learn about democracy. And so we need to all work together and realize that when you have an election and one person wins, then they have to pay attention to all the citizenry, not just the people that elected them. They have a responsibility for all of us. And it's the same with the person that loses. You have to be a gracious loser and work to make things better. And I sincerely hope we all try and follow our better angels and do whatever we can to learn, to teach other people, because it's education that will save democracy, and we need to save democracy, because we've seen what's going on in Ukraine, where one authoritarian person is destroying another country because of their fear of democracy, and we need to work together to help us all. Because the rising tide raises all boats, and we've all got our own little boat, and we need to work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Minor, you've been patient in trying to get up here.
How do I follow that? We are fortunate in Berry County that we have local media covering our activities. There's a lot of things that's happened in the last 10 days in Berry County. Only local media has covered it. We are fortunate. It's great to have Ms. Pierce here every week reporting on our activities. And we should I'm thanking JAD Graphics and Ms. Pierce. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hello, Adam Heigla, local business owner. In America here, We have politicians that continue to tell us that we are a democracy, but we're not a democracy. Democracy is mob rule. It's not freedom. You don't have freedom in a true democracy. So what we have is a democratic process to elect the representatives in our constitutional republic. That is a representative constitutional republic, where we the people are the sovereign lords of the land that have control over the government. That's what the Constitution gives us and tells you, the government, what you're able to do, what you're not able to do, and who you're able to affect and go after. But we, the people, have not been taught about jurisdiction, about the true authority that is given in the Constitution, because we have people that come up here and tell you guys these things. And I hope you do take up Miss Twitchell on her offer, because she is a wonderful lady that does understand and know the Constitution and our rights. And that's the important thing that we need to focus on, is how we get representatives again. That's what I've said repeatedly, right? Instead of politicians. You got to understand, if you're accepting the label of politician, you are accepting that you are abiding by a system of political power. That's what politicians do. Politicians make their decisions based off of political power, not the power of the people, not the political power that's inherent in the people. Article 1, Section 1 of the Michigan Constitution. But the forces of political power that control our world, that is what controls all the way down here to our local communities. I've talked about it, described it. I've asked you all. I'm not sure if, Vivian, if you've looked up Gamaliel Foundation. The last time we spoke, you still had not looked up the Gamaliel Foundation. Gamaliel. See and understand, learn about these groups that are doing controls, that are destroying our freedom, the individual rights to freedom that America was founded on. And when it comes to education, it's our families, it's our parents' duty, and the local community and the church's duty to be educators, not a big centralized federal government. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak this morning during public comment? There being no further business and without objection, the committee is adjourned. An hour.